Good morning. A quick update to Candlelight Games, Google Drive. I wanted to let everyone know I spent my Sunday morning and much of my breaks during my Sunday chores playing Christopher's New Chess Time. There is something about this little game that just grabbed my imagination. I've often said I don't make games that attempt to simulate, allow you as a player to simulate doing the thing. I design games that allow you to simulate fictional players or teams doing the thing. And Chris absolutely nailed this concept with, again, another brilliant time game. In this, we don't simulate. It's not me and you playing chess as a dice game. It is creating chess players in a fictional world and watching them compete to be the greatest chess players. And it snatched my imagination. I immediately played it, shared that video on the channel within minutes of receiving the email, and then proceeded Sunday morning when I got up to create my little world of random created fictional United States grandmasters and the other world best in the world players. And so I've added that. So this is a quick update letting you know that I have created my own little fictional 1971 universe of U.S. grandmasters with the top world. Of course, this would not be limited in reality. There's lots of people who play chess, but this was just my little world. I literally made up a name, picked a hometown, randomly picked an age, and then rolled up these in order. What I did do, though, was stick Michael McIntosh and Jules Magnuson, who I had made for that video debut. They're also here on the charts. I just gave them an age, and their ratings were already made when I played that game. So anyway, I just wanted to share that that's available for those who might be interested in grabbing those. I cannot recommend Chris's. Number one, Chris, he chooses to use my time engine, and it's greatly appreciated. Chris could certainly make his own games, and he could certainly probably invent his own engine. But I love the fact that he has created some rare sports that are genuinely fascinating to me, but they're also remarkably fun to play. I mean, his original roller derby time, I played a complete season, off season, and then I transitioned to big country because I wanted to feature the big country teams in my career. And I'm in the middle of my first season finishing that. But he has his brand new remastered version of the time engine. I have yet to play alpine skiing. The point is, Chris is wonderful at making these rare sports and making them fun. It's just amazing. Chess, darts, bowling, golf. There are people who would argue chess is not a sport. No, chess is an activity. And it is an activity that is every bit as fascinating in competition and personalities as is bowling and golf and football and hockey, etc., etc. It is. And so the idea of this seems really bizarre. Why would you do that? Well, because it's not, as I've said before, we're not simulating chess with dice. We're simulating fictional people who are in competition in chess. That is what we're doing, which is so fun. It's just so fun. All right, so I want to let everybody know I put up my fictional chess players for those who are interested. Next up, Andy, inspired by the game and my video, Andy created Chess Time Plus, and I would argue this is really its own engine, its own game. It really is. You could argue this might be an advanced version of Chess Time, but really it's another version of chess, and it is fantastic. So I was inspired by Christopher's Chess Time, and he made a 2d6 curved based game, and I've talked about this before. I've shared this especially with intimate conversations with friends and colleagues in game design. That I prefer linear and balanced dice to create excitement for every roll, but you have to create the curve of control somewhere else. 2d6 are curved engines, 3D6, 46, they allow you to control outcomes with the roll of the dice. With a balanced system, I've got to control outcomes somewhere else. So for those who don't know what I mean, if I want to make an accurate football game, but I want to use a 1d12, which is a linear balance, in other words, every time I roll it, it's a completely random number from 1 to 12, but I want it to be a realistic football game, then I have to have charts that represent scoring based on the outcome of 1 through 12. I want my dice to be exciting and random, but I don't want my football results to be random, if that makes sense. So my games generally use balanced dice as the mechanic, but I control the outcomes with the charts, right? Okay. Well, games that feature a 2d6 curve, they have the luxury of controlling outcomes directly through the weight of the dice. So there's a big difference between the time engine being a 1d6 system or being a curve-based system. So the curve just gives it depth and it gives control in design. So he also has added 2 more ratings, a D&E, which is outstanding. So Chris's game is ABC. He has added D&E, and he has added a second D6 creating a weight curve, which is very cool. And then again, his game charts are a little deeper and a little more detailed, also featuring a curve. So you're going to see more results in the middle of those charts, which is very cool. He's controlling the probabilities of what occurs in an open game. That in an open game, these are the things that are most likely to leave the playing board, right? Now, Chris can control that with his 1 through 6. Of course, it's a random die roll, but he can have every slot control what items leave the board. So they're the same. You know, the weight and the controls just come from something else, right? So, but this is an amazing advanced, probably, I would say, more detailed version, which is really sweet. And again, he has to tweak the scoring a little bit based on this. And again, he highlights that actual checkmates at this level are not very common, which is very nice to know, right? If we want to play more of a simulation. So I would say Chess Time is is a little more, again, simple, wide open, and fictional. And then Andy's version is a little more detailed, realistic, and the simulation a little closer probably to the world of chess. So 2 great options, both available to us free of charge, which is wonderful. I want to thank both of you again for that. I have yet to have a chance to play Andy's game. I've just scrutinized it and read the rules, but I just haven't had time to play it yet. Okay. Last but not least, a longtime friend and subscriber who likes to remain anonymous. He is responsible for creating the team cards for Parallax Football. He is responsible for creating the history of professional boxing boxers database. So he created all the 16,000 boxers are rated for my Boxing Time game. He's responsible for that. Well, guess what, folks? He has created a ratings table to rate historical soccer teams based on their goal performance, to create ratings that can be used with Soccer Time in the Time Sports Complete book. So if you want to go back in history and play the 1967 Premier League and you at least have goals for and goals against, you can rate those historical teams accurately to play Soccer Time in this book. It will not work for Big Country Soccer. Big Country Soccer has like 8 ratings for a team, and it won't work with EGE Soccer, 1-0, but it will work with this version of Soccer Time in this book. And he also went ahead and rated, I think, 2014 great teams of the past, so you can see how they work out. Obviously, with great teams, those teams are so good that a lot of the ratings are very close. The subtlety between, 2 teams that finished their seasons, 28-4 and 1 or something like that, they're all going to be similar in ratings. So just know that great teams, if you have a set of great boxers or great teams, there's subtle differences between the teams. But if you wanted to create, let's say, the 1967 Scottish League of Soccer, Obviously, you're going to rate those teams' real life output in goals and goals against, and you can replay the 1967 soccer league, Scottish Soccer League, right? And again, to remind people, the Time Sports Complete uses the easy, simple games in which they all use a standardized matrix. And then every page of the rules, soccer has its own simple one page of rules with scoring paradigm and extra time paradigm. And that's what he has made this for. So these great teams, AC Milan, he gives you how many goals they averaged. That's their rating. He gives you how many goals were scored against them. That's their defensive rating. And the goalie rating is shares the same as defense. So he does not differentiate the goalie from the defense. So that's smart, because when you make up fictional teams in my game, you can have a really bad goalie and a brilliant defense. He's smart. If you want to control output, you need to make sure your goalie isn't either always an A or B. They need to be guided by something. And because he bases defense on goals per against, it only makes sense that a big part of that defense is the goalie. So you'll notice all defensive grades are matched by the goalie grade. You won't see a goalie undermine a defense. Let's put it that way. And you won't see a bad defense propped up by a great goalie. Now, in my fictional world, you could have that. You could have a great defense and a bad goalie. You could have a bad defense and a brilliant goalie, but that's fictional. To control historical output, he has done the right thing here, and he has matched goalies to defense. Okay, also, you'll notice I created a free season simulation rules based on win percentage. So he has provided that. So if you were to go through and create a tournament with these guys, you can seed them based on their winning percentage. So who would be number one? Well, you would have, in one pool, you would have Bayer Leverkusen, who went undefeated ultimately, or unblemished. And also, you would have AC Milan, Arsenal, 23-04, would be seated at the top of another pool or bracket. Or you would have this as number one on one side of the bracket, and this team is number one on the other side of the bracket. And you can seed them based on their win percentage before you play out your tournament. So remember, in my rules, when you create teams, it's going to give you a power rating, which you can turn into a win-loss rating, and that simulates the whole season. And then all you're doing is grabbing the teams that made it to the playoffs or the off-season or the postseason. So I want to thank him. He wants to remain anonymous, so we will honor that. But thank you again, my friend, for first of all providing a chart where they can do the math and create any team in history based on goals for and goals against. The game book and game are already here free. There's ratings, and it's just wonderful to see somebody give soccer love. I really appreciate soccer as a sport. I do believe it is the beautiful game. There is subtle intricacies to tactics, formations, and decisions and talent. Again, what these guys can do with their feet, most of us can't do with our hands. Soccer is a remarkable thing. So it's just nice to see someone in the community give soccer some love. So for all those soccer fans out there who lament the fact there's never enough soccer games and there's not any support for soccer for my games, just know that you can come in here into the Time Sports Complete Original and snatch some ratings guide and great teams and the rules and go to work. All right, everybody, have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.